Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk about what happens in your body when you mix ginger and beets, two extremely powerful foods that can help your liver, inflammation, circulation, blood sugar. In fact, it's interesting because many people think that beets are like a potato in terms of carbohydrates, but that's not really the case. And actually, in the amount I'm going to tell you about, it's super easy to add. The taste is pleasant, and I'll give you some tips on how to prepare it. You're going to love it. Stay until the end, you won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you, do you use any daily mixtures? I'd love to see your comment. When we think about beets and ginger, why does this combination make sense? Of course, when we think about beets, just by its color, we can tell it's an extremely nutritious food, full of bioactive compounds, and ginger goes without saying, right? It's one of the most well-studied foods for reducing inflammation, thanks to its many remarkable bioactive compounds. So let's start with the first benefit, which has to do with blood circulation, helping with heavy legs and that sluggish, weighed-down feeling in the body. Beets are rich in naturally occurring plant nitrates, and some of those nitrates are converted into nitric oxide in our bodies. Nitric oxide is an extremely important molecule because it helps relax and widen the blood vessels. In other words, with more relaxed blood vessels, you get better blood flow, which can mean better blood pressure control, better overall regulation, better perfusion, right? Improved blood circulation, more efficient transport of oxygen and nutrients. And this really helps in cases of tired legs, that feeling of heaviness, very disproportionate fatigue, and even that uncomfortable sensation of a stiff body that some people experience. As for ginger, regarding this same issue, since it contains gingerols and shogals, compounds that have been widely studied for their vascular benefits and effects on the inflammatory environment, it can help process and modulate inflammatory processes in our body, which often can cause that sensation of heaviness in the legs, circulatory discomfort. So it really helps with peripheral circulation, overall bodily comfort, and provides a distinct sensation of a lighter, less inflamed body. So this combination can help with blood circulation and is exceptionally interesting and beneficial. The second benefit is related to liver health, specifically fatty liver, because beets contain betaine, which has been studied in various scientific articles regarding pathways related to hepatic metabolism. So this greatly aids the process of fat metabolism within the liver, such as hepatic steatosis, metabolic balance, and the functioning of liver cells. Beets are a very interesting food for strengthening and improving liver health, especially because they contain many antioxidants, which we can see in their reddish color, and we know that an inflamed liver produces more free radicals, so they are an excellent option. Ginger also contains many antioxidant compounds, which have been studied in relation to metabolic inflammation, insulin resistance, lipid metabolism. It makes sense, especially to think about ginger when we consider abdominal fat, high triglycerides, insulin resistance, and fatty liver. So yes, I think the liver really benefits from these natural ingredients to help with the self-cleaning process that the liver has. Of course, the liver already does its own detox, but there are substances in some foods that help to further strengthen the liver's role. This mixture can also help if you suffer a lot from pain or low-grade chronic inflammation, which is different from the kind of inflammation you get when you're injured or have a lesion. This low-grade chronic inflammation is closely related to excessive sugar in the diet, the accumulation of fat in the visceral and central abdominal region, a sedentary lifestyle, poor sleep, insulin resistance, and the consumption of ultra-processed foods. So when we consume this mixture, ginger can help a lot because ginger is a powerful anti-inflammatory. We know that its compounds, gingerols and shogals, have been studied and they act on pathways comparable to some anti-inflammatory medications. Of course, the idea is not to say that it will replace any medication, but rather that they have this ability to act on these pathways, albeit in a milder way, of course. And beets contain betalains, which are associated with cellular protection and the reduction of oxidative stress. We know that when oxidative stress is excessive, it contributes to increased inflammation in our bodies. Controlling low-grade chronic inflammation is very important for the prevention and progression of diseases, and even for healthier aging. If you're enjoying the video, go ahead and leave a like. It's super important to me. If you know someone who likes these healthy mixes, share the video. Let's spread this chain of kindness. And remember to take a look down here in the description as well, because speaking of inflammation, I have a playlist with many videos with tips to reduce inflammation, as well as many recipes. Many people also benefit from this mix when we think about energy, tiredness, and fatigue, because beets, as they improve perfusion and blood circulation, allow tissues to receive more oxygen and more nutrients. And many people report feeling less heaviness in the body, having more energy for physical exercise, and experiencing less fatigue when they exert themselves physically. As for ginger, it is related to digestion and energy metabolism. When digestion and inflammation improve, people feel less heaviness in the body, less sluggishness, and this ends up giving people more energy in their daily lives. A very interesting point. Another benefit is related to blood pressure, vascular health, the health of the heart and arteries. As I mentioned, beets contain nitric oxide, which acts directly on this vascular function. Studies have already investigated the association with parameters related to vascular health, blood pressure, and circulation, which is very interesting. People are often afraid of ginger when we talk about blood pressure, but in fact, science has shown the opposite. So, the scientific literature shows that consuming ginger does not increase blood pressure. On the contrary, there are several studies observing a relationship with favorable vascular markers. I have a video with bibliographic and scientific references supporting why ginger can help you improve and manage blood pressure. Now, if you say, Patricia, I'm afraid it will raise my blood pressure, that fear itself could raise it because it increases cortisol, adrenaline, stress, then your blood pressure rises from fear, not ginger. So if you're afraid, if you've ever tried it and thought it might cause a problem, you don't need to consume it. Remember to listen to your body. Every body is different. And if you have any doubts or already have a health condition, always talk to your doctor. This video is for informational purposes only. This mixture can also be helpful if you're dealing with constipation or trying to relieve occasional bowel sluggishness. It may also help if you experience excessive gas, bloating. That's because ginger is closely linked to digestive comfort, reducing nausea, improving the feeling of a heavy stomach, aiding slow digestion, and eliminating intestinal gas. Many people who are constipated go days without having a bowel movement, which leads to more fermentation and bloating, so ginger helps in this regard. And beets, since they are rich in a high amount of fiber and water, naturally they can help stimulate the elimination of stool, so they're a very effective option in that sense. There's also the issue of improving glucose, insulin resistance, and metabolism as a whole. Because as I mentioned, people tend to think that beets are like potatoes, but that's not the case at all. They have much fewer carbs than most people imagine, especially when we eat them raw, when we eat them whole, with the fiber, without straining them, as I say. And it has a completely different metabolic context compared to refined sugar, white flour, or for example, coconut. So it helps provide more sustained energy without impacting blood sugar as much. Ginger as well. Observational studies have already shown that it can have benefits regarding glycemic metabolism, insulin sensitivity, and an improvement in the inflammatory environment related to insulin resistance. So yes, consuming these foods that are completely natural and healthy can indeed help with metabolism and with glucose control in a complementary way. Lastly, and certainly no less significant, this mixture can be exceptionally beneficial for training as a pre-workout, and for improving performance and the muscle's ability to regenerate, especially once you have passed the age of 50. Beets are being increasingly studied in the context of physical exercise and endurance. Because of the nitric oxide I mentioned to you, right? It helps to increase perfusion, allowing more nutrients to reach the muscle. So this really helps blood, oxygen, glucose, nutrients, peptides, amino acids to reach your muscles. So it's very interesting for you to be able to achieve muscle recovery. And ginger can greatly enhance, really improve, because of its anti-inflammatory properties, which also help with muscle recovery, right? Which is super interesting. That's why, in fact, many people choose to make this little mixture and consume it before working out. If you're someone who works out, this can be a good pre-workout option for you. Of course, as a complement, right? Not just this as your pre-workout, but it can be part of your pre-workout routine. And a basic recipe that I like to make is half a raw beet, a piece of ginger about 2 or 3 centimeters long. If you don't have it, you can use a bit of powdered ginger, which is easier to find, but then you should use less because it's more concentrated, right? Cold water to taste, and if you want, you can add a bit of lemon juice to cut the taste of the beet. Some people don't like it, but I don't mind. I think it's tasty. And there are people who even like to add some other tea like dandelion, chamomile, or cinnamon to give it a nice aroma and also get more bioactive compounds. Blend everything, don't strain it, and drink it with some ice. It works really well. If you don't work out, it can be part of your breakfast or your afternoon snack, or even to complement your meal, right? It can be part of your lunch or your dinner. So tell me, at what time would you enjoy this delicious treat? I'd love to see your comment. Leave a like on the video if you haven't already, and share it with someone who'll enjoy it or someone who needs it. Let's grow our chain of kindness. That's what I want with the channel. See you next time. Bye.